Hello, we're starting our Christmas month. This is our first week of it, and Jesus is the reason for the season. We know that. However, I'm going to talk about Jesus' birth next week, but this week I'm going to talk about children, because we know that Jesus loved children, and we all love children. And so, first God, then our children is how we line things up. And my sisters and I my sisters were reading a book, and I saw it on Facebook. They were talking about it, and so I got curious, and I wanted to see what it was about. It says, "Before we were yours," and so I got Cheryl to check it out of the library for me, and I got very interested in it. And in the 1920s through the 1950s, the orphan homes and children were put into wasn't the best in the world. They were very bad, as a matter of fact. Especially there was one in Tennessee, and they would sometimes steal children, poor children, and sell them to people that had money and all, that wanted children and couldn't have them and all. And so there were a lot of people abused, a lot of children abused. And you could find it in the library. It's called "Before We Were Yours" by Lisa Wingate. And this is very good, but you could also find what went on that time in the public library. But this gives you a lot of names in it. But this is a story that wasn't true, in that it wasn't that family. It was just a fiction. It's called fiction, right? Mm-hmm. A fiction book. But it was based on things that were true. And so we hear today of children being abused. We pick up the paper, and just about every day we can read, well, maybe not every day, but every week or two we can read of a child being abused or even being killed by someone. And so they were even killed back then. So there was a lot of children would wind up dead, especially if they was high-spirited and they fought against the people. And so, and I thought about it, and I thought about the fact that I had written a poem that this lady that was staying with my mother, because my mother had dementia, and we had to have someone to stay at night, and she told me the story of her childhood, and it was so much like what happened back then. This book, it starts off in 1939. That's when I was born. Well, this lady makes a mention of in the 1940s in Massachusetts, and so it wasn't just Tennessee. It was somewhere throughout the United States. There was several places and all. I noticed in the book where she had references and all. And so I'm going to read, I have read it before, but I'm going to read it again, because this one shows that God is still in the lives of children and all, even though there has been some abuse. God is still alive. And it's called "The Star Turned into a Cross." "They called me a state child," she said. "Oh, what an ugly word. State child was a word given to children being raised by the state of Massachusetts in the Boston area in the 1940s. She talked freely of the things she could remember as a child. Her mother had died in childbirth when she was 8 years old, the baby an hour later. Her father, then in his 60s, not only lost his wife and baby, but the state decided he could not raise 7 children properly. Her older sister went to live with her grandmother for the first year. She and 3 younger siblings went to a large estate of a home that had a very elegant outward appearance. However, the treatment of the children behind closed doors were different. Most of the time they were kept in a basement area with toys. The area was enclosed with chicken wire so the children could not escape. At Christmas they received toys. On Sunday and holidays they were well fed. However, the rest of the time their meals consisted of cereals for breakfast, bread and butter for lunch, and small portions of a regular meal at dinner. She was expected to supervise the 2 younger brothers and sister plus several other children throughout the long days. No one came to soothe their hurt feelings. No bedroom stories. She remembers the cries of a younger brother that was taken away from the group and locked off by himself for wetting the bed. When they were led from one area to another, they were expected to march single file. It was a long year. There was a certain window that she would go to look at the stars. One night, after everything had gone wrong all day, she cried and cried into her pillow. Finally, she went to her window and prayed, "Please, God, take us from this place." As she prayed into the nighttime sky, suddenly the star that she gazed upon turned into a cross. A month or so later, they were moved into a better situation. And then in Matthew, my verse today would be Matthew 19:14. But Jesus said, "Suffer little children to forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven." And so the other one is, the song that I'm going to sing tonight is one I wrote 35 years ago. It could have been, this story about the cross may have affected it, but I also know that back then you would read things in the paper, and it's called "If the Angel on the Christmas Tree Could Talk." So let me see. I read it in the news today, another baby died. They beat his little body, all because he cried. How could they destroy a life that meant so much to them? Any chance of happiness for them is growing dim. And in that same newspaper was a picture of a tree, brightly decorated with Christmas majesty. From above the blinking lights, eyes that gently greet, outstretched arms adorned in white, an angel smile so sweet. If the angel on the Christmas tree could talk, I know her message would be one of love. I'd make this world a better place, pain and sorrow I'd erase, I'd fill each gift with blessings from above. In each perfume there'd be a sin to ease a troubled mind, gold and silver jewels of patience true and kind. Candy canes and stockings would be filled with peace and joy, toys, shiny beads of love for every girl and boy. I questioned long the evil acts to children being done, fighting and confusion going on inside a home. Why can't they see and understand the need for inner peace? If they would turn their hearts to God, their misery would cease. If the angel on the Christmas tree could talk, I know her message would be one of love. I'd make this world a better place, pain and sorrow I'd erase, I'd fill each gift with blessings from Thank you, and I'll see you again next week, and I will have more of Jesus's. I have two things I'm going to do next week of Jesus and his birth.